Howdy everyone and welcome to my third devlog. I hope you enjoyed that over dramatic battle scene that just played, and I hope you've had a great Christmas if that's something you celebrate. This week has been super exciting with how fast the channel started growing, and within a couple weeks of uploading my first devlog, I've received nearly 800 views, reached 100 subscribers and gotten heaps of motivating comments from you guys. I know these numbers aren't the biggest in the world, but I wasn't expecting even half this amount of attention, at least not this fast. And I can only take it as a sign that people do want to watch this kind of content. So thanks to everyone that's supported the channel so far, it does mean a lot. I've made a few controversial changes this episode, so your feedback about these changes will be much appreciated. I want to know what you guys want out of this game so I can make it a better experience for anyone that wants to play it. Now let's get to it. I started working on new enemy models. I gave a little sneak peek of one of these models in the last devlog, but now you'll get a full look at them. While you watch me modeling these new guys, I'll give you a quick rundown on how this enemy will fit into the storyline that I've been loosely putting together. This is the main enemy of the game, a big microwave who goes by the name Mike Rowave. First name Mike, last name Rowave. Mike's come up with an evil plan to gain control over all other appliances using his newly theorized brainwashing technology and use them as his minions to take over the world. To help him gather components and build the required equipment, Mike made an army of smaller microwaves, which you'll see very soon. I haven't really decided on a name for these guys yet, and since they'll all be clones and each one on their own won't really have any real importance in the story of the game, I can't really give them unique names either. I'm thinking they can be called Mike-alikes or like Mikes, but maybe one of you guys have a better idea. I next went to work on creating a new model for Toasty himself. This model you see me making won't be a finished model either, but I'm just testing a more rounded style as opposed to the squarer design of the original. I'm indecisive which one I like more, but I think by the end of editing this video I'm leaning more towards the rounded version. Let me know what one you think I should keep using for now. I also had to go through and remake all of the animations for this new model. Since I was just copying animations I already had, it wasn't that big of a deal. I think one of the reasons I was unhappy with the original is because I want this character to have just that, character, which I feel it was lacking. I chose to add eyes, which was somewhat planned all along, and straight away it changes Toasty's whole personality. These eyes were just off of Google Images and I definitely wasn't keeping them, but it was enough to convince me that eyes would work. I tried them on the body and on the toast, but wasn't too concerned with the placement for now. As you'll see, I later changed the eyes to a closer to finished product 3D model. The particles caused by the player's movement have a big influence on the feel of the game, so changing how they look can have a huge impact. Last devlog I replaced the 3D spheres that make up the clouds with 3D icospheres. This episode I went one step further and replaced the 3D models with a 2D sprite that's billboarded to the camera to give the illusion of being 3D. This choice was done for aesthetic reasons, but also gives a huge benefit in performance. I had to make the dash particle system fit the same style, and I also added a particle system for when you're running along the ground. I later removed it, then brought it back, but toned it down to an almost invisible dust cloud. I also added a big cloud for when you hit the ground out of a slam. At the same time as working on the particles, I changed the dash mechanic to allow you to be able to dash while you're on the ground, whereas before you couldn't. The dash used to reset when you'd hit the ground, and every time you left the ground you would have the chance to use one dash. Now you can dash infinitely, but it's timed. With this new dash, I added a feature seen in a lot of high-end games, an input buffer. This helps for situations where the player presses the dash button just before the next dash is ready. The buffer will store their input for a number of frames and execute the dash when it's ready. I've given a buffer of 10 frames, which is very generous, but I've found it isn't too long at all. To switch it up, I started modeling the members of Mike's clone army. I made them a bit smaller than Mike and just kept the model very simple for now. Using curves, I was able to get smooth animations of the door opening and closing with a little bit of follow through and bounce back to add to the cartoony vibe. These guys look a lot cheaper than Mike himself, and there's a clear distinction between which one's more powerful in the game. I can say that I'm happy with the base prototypes for both Mike and his army of alikes. And by the way, TGS Nicholas commented asking about mouse and keyboard support, and I just wanted to point out that in this clip right here, I am using mouse and keyboard, but as you can see, it doesn't look as smooth as controller yet. Controller is what I intend this game on being played with, and that's why I tend to show off the controller side of things a bit more. I then moved on to add another small but very welcome fix to the dash. Now, if you're falling past a certain velocity, the height of your dash will be increased a bit to counteract the downward motion of your fall. Again, it's a small change but feels very noticeable. Before you felt as if you were diving into the ground, but now it feels the way I intended, a forward dash. Moving platforms are a staple for most 3D platformers. I attempted to make some of my own using an animation and triggers. I know this isn't the best way since I have another animator constantly running in the background, but it somewhat worked for now. When you enter the trigger placed on top of the platform, your character becomes parented to the platform's game object. This means wherever the game object moves, you move. I was unhappy with the final result anyway and will need to work on a better system in the future, but for now I can get an idea of how I want the platforms to move and the distances between them. I capped the game to 30 frames per second to test how it would run on a lower end PC. Everything besides the targeting system still worked as expected. The issue with the targeting was that when locked onto an enemy and walking at the same time, Toasty's model would look in a different direction. When you fired the toast it would still hit the enemy, but this was not what I was going for. This was being caused by the player's rotation being updated at different speeds for when you're targeting or not. This was an easy fix and now the game runs as intended on all frame rates. I played around with momentum and my solution was to create variables that would try to chase the value of your input but could only increase by a value of drag. Now if you stop moving mid-air, your character's momentum will carry over instead of the harsh drop that was happening beforehand. This gives the sense that Toasty has a bit of weight. I wasn't happy with this approach and ended up getting rid of it, but will try to achieve momentum using my speed variable directly so I have more wiggle room with the values. When remodeling Toasty, I forgot to add the lever on his side. I just made it out of a simple cube that was skewed a little and later went in and added the slot in his side off camera. I began changing the way the slam mechanic works and I was a bit worried when I couldn't get it back to functioning. It took me a good half a day of messing around to get it working the way that I wanted. It now works with the box collider at the base of the player, giving you a more lenient slam so that you will hit even if you slightly miss. You'll also get a bounce back when you hit the ground and it's a lot more fun to use now. I wanted to be able to chain together slams similar to Sonic the Hedgehog, and this is getting close already even without implementing an actual system yet. The slam and targeting system will probably come out in the one episode coming up soon. I want to get these systems working properly before showcasing them. The last addition and the cherry on top for this episode is the 3D eyes I mentioned earlier. This actually has a bit of a story to go with it, so while you're watching, just have a listen. I added these eyes early this morning, and about 20 minutes after, I get a comment on my video from Thomas Tornoise telling me how my game reminds him of an animated movie he used to watch when he was younger called The Brave Little Toaster. This was my first time hearing of the game, but very curious to see what the connection he had made between my game and this movie is. I searched it up on YouTube. I was blown away by how similar Toasty was to the toaster in the movie, and even more so with these eyes that I had just added and a round model I'd done earlier this week. I had tried to find games similar to mine to make sure I wasn't ripping anything off when starting, but I didn't even think of movies. So thanks for sharing that with me, Thomas. I had a bit of fun watching it for inspiration. If you've got any tips or ideas, or if I've left something out that you want to know more about, be sure to leave a comment letting me know and I can work something out for one of the upcoming episodes. The feedback I've been getting is awesome and it's really motivating, but I'm hoping more people will have some criticism this time around so I can make some changes that people want. Do keep in mind though that all the visuals are just placeholders for now. Really keen to see what you guys think of this episode as I've made some big changes that I wasn't sure of myself. And that's all for this episode. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about leaving a like and subscribe if you're keen on seeing more stuff like this. I'm not sure what I'll be working on next episode, but I have a few exciting things in store that will change the game a lot. I hope I see you in the next video, and thanks for watching.